welcome back to English for Specific Purposes, Level B1. Today, we are your hosts. I am Mr. Daryl.
And I'm Miss Tatia.
And we are going to talk about a scary topic today, phobias related to psychology.
გამარჯობათ, მე თათია ვარ, ეს კიდერილია. კეთილი იყოს თქვენი დაბრუნება ტელესკოლაში. ჩვენ ვისაუბრეთ ბევრ საინტერესო თემაზე. წინა გაკვეთილზე ფსიქოლოგიას შევეხეთ. სწორედ ფსიქოლოგიით ვაპირებთ გაგრძელებას და ძალიან საინტერესო თემას შიშებს შევეხებით. მაგრამ ვიდრე უშუალოდ გაკვეთილზე გადავიდოდეთ, მოდი გადავხედოთ ჩვენი გაკვეთილის გეგმას.
Today we're going to start with an introduction. We will discuss a few phobias, move on to the vocabulary that is connected to the text that we have chosen today. Then we will look at grammar and move on to a summary of everything we've spoken about and of course give you some homework.
გაკვეთილს მცირე შესწავლით დავიწყებთ, შემდეგ შევისწავლით ახალ სიტყვებს, შემდეგ წავიკითხავთ ტექსტს, ამის შემდეგ განვიხილავთ გრამატიკას, შემდეგ შევაჯამებთ გაკვეთილს და დავასრულებთ ყველასათვის საყვარელი საშინაო დავალებით. Now let's get started. Mr. Daryl, how would you feel if you stood on the top of a very tall building?
You know what, I actually would feel frightened. I have a phobia of heights.
Really?
Yes, I can't be on a tall building and looking over because I get sort of shaky. My knees start to shake. I start to feel, my heart starts racing. I think it's what's called a phobia.
Oh, really? It's very interesting.
Do you have the same phobia?
No, by the way. I can look out of the balcony of a very tall building and I don't have any kind of fear.
That's statistics show that everyone's got some kind of phobia, so maybe your phobia lies somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe we're going to find it out today. Now let's move on. So let's look at our first set of vocabulary. And the first word we have is acrophobia. Acrophobia is a noun and in Georgian it is simaglis shishi. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word in English?
Sure. This one's simple. It's a fear of heights. Exactly what I have.
What you have, yeah, that's right. So it means that you have acrophobia. Can I say it like that?
Yes, you can. And I'm trying to get over it.
Okay, wish you luck. Okay, acrophobia is a noun and in Georgian it is simaglis shishi. Acrophobia, simaglis shishi. Let's say together.
Acrophobia.
And the next word is Cauldrophobia, and it's a noun, and in Georgian it is jambazebis shishi. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word?
I mean, there's been several horror films in recent times that have this as a main theme. It is the fear of clowns.
Yeah, so strange. I've never seen anyone who has the fear of clowns.
I've actually never understood it.
Are they scary generally? They're funny for me.
I've never understood myself. I've never had a fear of clowns.
So it's really strange, right? Okay, Cauldrophobia is a noun and in Georgian it is jambazebis shishi. Cauldrophobia, jambazebis shishi. Let's say together.
Cauldrophobia.
And let's move on to the next word, and this is hydrophobia. Hydrophobia is a noun, and in Georgian it is tsqlis shishi. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word for us?
It is the fear of water, and that's a terrible fear to have. You can't go near the beach, you can't go near pools. You don't have this fear, do you?
By the way, if I think, now I can say that I have this phobia, because I could never learn swimming.
Oh.
I couldn't go under the water, you know? So I think I have this phobia.
It can be even in a little way. You're not completely fearful of water, but you're afraid of submerging into it.
Yeah, I cannot go under the water. So maybe I can still call it hydrophobia. So hydrophobia is a noun, and in Georgian it is tsqlis shishi. Hydrophobia, tsqlis shishi. Let's say together.
Hydrophobia.
And the next word is zoophobia. Zoophobia is a noun and in Georgian it is ცხოველების შიში. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word for us?
Yes, it's the fear of animals. It's having some kind of irrational or inexplainable fear of animals.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't have this phobia because I love animals very much. So, zoophobia is a noun and in Georgian it is ცხოველების შიში. Zoophobia, ცხოველების შიში. So let's say together, zoophobia. Now let's move on to the next word, and this is arachnophobia. Arachnophobia is a noun, and in Georgian it is ობობების შიში. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word?
It's the fear of spiders, which I've never really had. Have you?
No. I'm not afraid of spiders. I don't have any kind of bad feelings connected with spiders. And what about you?
I think there's probably, because of some certain superheroes and stuff, kids are probably not afraid of spiders anymore either.
Yeah, you're right. So, arachnophobia is a noun, and in Georgian it is ობობების შიში. Arachnophobia, ობობების შიში. Now let's say together, arachnophobia. And the next phobia we have is aerophobia. Aerophobia is a noun, and in Georgian it is prenis shishi. Can you define the word for us, Mr. Daryl?
Yes, it's a fear of flying, and I believe you might have something to say about this later.
Yeah, I have, but let's wait. Okay, so aerophobia is a noun, and in Georgian it is prenis shishi. Aerophobia, prenis shishi. Let's say together,
Aerophobia.
Okay, I think that we have finished with the words, and now we have to practice how well we remember all these complicated words, right?
Complicated but common.
But common, right. Okay. ეკრანზე იხილავთ სიტყვის განმარტებას. მოდი ერთად შევეცადოთ სწორი სიტყვა შევურჩიოთ განმარტებას. So the first definition is fear of water. So do you remember what we call fear of water?
There's a word that has a clue in it, and I would say it's hydrophobia.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is hydrophobia. So it means that we can move on to the next sentence, next
Which I will ask you. What, Ms. Tatia, is the fear of heights?
Yes, and I remember that you have this fear, and you said that this is called acrophobia. Am I right? It's great.
Excellent.
Okay, now we can move on, and here is fear of animals. So, what do you think? Which is the word for this definition?
Well, the clue again is in the word, a place where you can find animals, in fact, and it's zoophobia.
Zoophobia, you're absolutely right. Okay, now let's move on, and here we have fear of spiders.
What is it, Ms.
What is
Tatia?
it called? I remember, and I can say. Fear of spiders is called arachnophobia. And I think that I'm right.
Yes, well done.
I have no doubts about this word, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now let's move on. We have two options and one definition, and the definition is the following. Fear of flight is called?
Aerophobia.
Aerophobia. You're absolutely right. And the final word we have is fear of clowns, which was quite strange for us,
There's
but
no
still
clue.
it exists.
Yeah.
And the word is Cauldrophobia.
Unlike the other ones, there's no clue for guessing the meaning from the word,
I agree with you.
It is Cauldrophobia.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. So now we can move on to the next section, which is reading. But before we read a text, we need to learn some words to understand the text better, right? ახლა კითხვაა კითხვის დავალებაზე გადავიდეთ, მაგრამ ვიდრე უშუალოდ დავალებაზე გადავალთ, მოდით შევისწავლოთ რამდენიმე ახალი სიტყვა, რომელიც ტექსტიც უკეთესად გაგებაში დაგვეხმარება. Okay, and the second set of vocabulary starts with the word behavior. Behavior is a noun, and in Georgian it is ktseva. And I think that we need your help there.
I would love to help. This is just the way a person acts or conducts himself in front of people. his behavior.
And people have different behavior. Different people have different behavior. So, and psychology, I think, studies the behavior of people. Is it right?
Precisely, yeah. And that's exactly what we've been focusing on today.
Yes. So behavior is a noun, and in Georgian it is ktseva. Behavior. Ktseva. Let's say it together.
Behavior.
And our next word is cure. Cure is a verb, and in Georgian it means gankurneba. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word for us?
Sure. Whenever you have an illness, the very first thing you'll need is a cure for the illness, something that takes that illness away from you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that what doctors do is that they cure patients. Cure is a verb, and in Georgian it is gankurneba. Cure, gankurneba. Cure, gankurneba. Let's say it together. Cure. And our next word is attitude. Attitude is a noun, and in Georgian it means damukidebuleba. Can you give us more information about this word, Mr. Daryl?
Sure, it's a kind of state of being. It defines the way you look at something or some situation, your response to some situation outside of you.
Yeah, and for example, you can have different attitudes to different things, right? For example, you might have positive or negative attitude to
You might be an
things.
optimist, you might be a pessimist.
Yeah, that's right. For example, here we have an example. Start each day with a positive attitude. It means that you have to think positively about things, right?
I like how we're being very positive today.
Yeah, really. Attitude is a noun, and in Georgian it is damukidebuleba. Attitude, damukidebuleba. Let's say it together.
Attitude.
Our next word is a fact. A fact is a verb, and in Georgian it is kavlenis mohtena. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word for us?
Sure, I can. This is when you have an influence or you are able to change something outside of yourself. You're able to affect this thing.
Yeah, absolutely right. Okay. So a fact is a verb, and in Georgian it is kavlenis mohtena. A fact. Kavlenis mohtena. Let's say it together.
A fact.
And the next word is cope. Cope is a verb, and in Georgian it means tavis gartmeva, dadleva. Mr. Daryl, can you help with definition?
I'd love to. This is when you are able to deal with a difficult situation successfully. You cope with it.
Yeah, so I have coped with a lot of difficulties in my life. And I hope that you too, right?
When you have stress, you've got to cope with it somehow.
Yes, yeah. So cope is a verb, and in Georgian it is tavis gartmeva, dadleva. Cope, tavis gartmeva, dadleva. So let's say together.
Cope.
And we have moved to the new word, and this is confront. Confront is a verb, and in Georgian it is შეპირისპირება, წინააღმდეგობის გაწევა.
And when you confront someone, you directly meet the problem face on. Whatever it might be, a person, it might be a thing, it might be a difficult situation, but directly you meet it.
Yeah, and is it the synonym of face?
Yes. Yeah,
To face,
yes,
right?
good synonym.
So for example, we have, he could not confront the fear of heights. It means that he could not cope with this fear, right?
Indeed. And he would be stressed.
So confront in Georgian is შეპირისპირება, წინააღმდეგობის გაწევა. Confront, შეპირისპირება, წინააღმდეგობის გაწევა. Let's say together.
Confront.
And I think that we have finished with the words, and now we have to move to the reading section, right? Reading
Indeed.
part, and we are going to read a text, a very interesting text about phobias. Many people have a fear of things like snakes, spiders, heights, water, and small enclosed spaces. If many people have the same fears, how do we all develop them? If you think about the time when we did not live in houses but alongside nature, we faced many more dangers from animals. We have developed a response to situations that might cause us harm, such as bite from poisonous snake or a bite from a dog. Of course, not all fears are innate.
For example, if you see someone almost drown, you may react by developing a fear of water. Or if a parent has a fear of heights, it is quite common for their children to also develop a fear of heights. The reason for this is not genetic. It is simply because children learn behavior and attitudes from their parents.
So to answer this question, we have to define what is meant by phobia. While almost everyone has a fear of something, whether it is spiders or flying, a fear is only classified as a phobia by psychologists if it is so serious that it affects your daily life. According to the Anxiety Disorders Association of America, 19 million Americans have specific phobias, such as crossing bridges or going through tunnels. Another 15 million have a social phobia, such as public speaking. Unfortunately, those who have one phobia are likely to have others too.
Because many fears are learned during our lives, we simply have to unlearn these feelings. If people confront their fear in a gradual way, they can learn how to control how they react to the situation and not panic. It might not cure the fear completely, but it will probably help people to cope better.
Okay, that was very interesting text. There was also some information how we can cope with fears.
Yeah, I mean, it's not enough just to be scared by these things. You've got to learn how to overcome them somehow, to cope with them.
Okay, absolutely right. Now it's time for the task. We are going to read the statements and decide if the statements are true or false. ეხლა კი გადავიდეთ კითხვის დავალებაზე. მონიტორზე გამოჩნდება წინადადებები, ჩვენ კი უნდა განვსაზღვროთ ეს წინადადებები შეესაბამება თუ არა სიმართლეს. თუ წინადადება შეესაბამება ტექსტს, ანუ მართალია ვამბობთ true. თუ წინადადება არ შეესაბამება ტექსტს, ანუ ტყუილია ვამბობთ false. Now let's get started, and the first statement we have is children usually develop the same fears as their parents have. Do you remember what we read about it?
For once, I'm going to try an answer that's just not based on the text, but what I think. Let's see if I'm right or wrong. Now, I think, I don't have the same fears as my parents, so let me just say false to this one.
I don't think that you are right, Mr. Daryl, and this is true because in the text we read, if a parent has a fear of heights, it's quite common for their children to also develop a fear of heights. So unfortunately, you were not right.
I don't have any of my parents' fears, but yes, the text is always right.
Yeah, okay. Now let's move on, and the next statement is, phobias usually have no influence on our lives. And I think that this is false because they do have influence on our lives.
Unfortunately.
Do you agree?
I do agree.
Okay, let's check. Yes, that's false because we read that if fears are serious, they usually affect your daily life.
Very true.
Yes, let's move to the next one. People usually have only one phobia. What do you think, Mr. Daryl? Is this statement true or false?
Well, I think it's probably false. No one really has one of anything, in my way of thinking. But let's see what the text says.
Okay, let's check. This is false because we read, unfortunately, those who have one phobia are likely to have others too. Okay, and the final statement is, it's impossible to learn to control our fears. What do you think? Is it true or false?
Well, with my fear of heights, I've tried to control it, but I can't. So I'm going to say it's impossible, it's true.
Let's check. It's false because we read, if people confront their fear in a gradual way, they can learn to control how they react to the situation and not panic.
So once again, it pays to pay attention to the text when you read carefully.
Yes, we need to.
Or else you get wrong answers.
Yes. And I think now it's time to move to grammar. ეხლა კი დროა გადავიდეთ გრამატიკაზე. Let's look at this sentence. We have developed a response to situations that might cause us harm. Mr. Daryl, is this sentence about past, present, or future?
Definitely the past.
Yes. Do we know exactly when this thing happened in the past? Is
Nope.
the time indicated?
Nope, it's unspecified. It's kind of in the past, but we don't know when.
Okay. So when we talk about actions which happened in the past, finished, but we don't know the exact time when they finished, or the time is not specified, we usually use present perfect. That's the topic of today's grammar. And let's listen to Daryl.
Present perfect simple. We use this tense to talk about an event at an unspecified past time. The exact time is unknown or unimportant. Here's an example. I have experienced this fear. We use the present perfect simple for something that started in the past and continues in the present as well. Here's an example to make that clear. They've been married for nearly 50 years. They haven't stopped being married, and it's continuing onwards. We also use the present perfect simple when we are talking about our experience up to the present moment. Here's an example. He has written 3 books, and he is working on another one as well. We often use the adverb ever to talk about experience up to the present. My last birthday party was the worst day I've ever had. And we can also use never for the negative form. Here's the example. I have never experienced this feeling. So very useful phrases and a very useful tense as well. We do not use the present perfect with adverbials which refer to a finished pastime, such as yesterday, last week, last month, last year, in 2017, when I was younger, and so on. For example, I would not say, I have talked to my psychologist yesterday. I would just simply say, I talked to my psychologist yesterday, because of yesterday. And you would use past simple. But we can use the present perfect with adverbials which refer to a time which is not yet finished. For example, today, this week, this month, this year, now that I'm 18, and so on. Here is the example. I have not visited my psychologist this week. And now let's look at the form of how the present perfect is constructed. In the affirmative form, we have the subject, we have the to have verb, and then we have the past participle, the third form, as some of you may know it. So, she has visited. And that's a full present perfect. The negative form is as follows. We have the subject, we have to have plus not, and then the past participle. She has not or hasn't visited. We have the interrogative form, to have the subject and the past participle. Has she visited?
Okay, very interesting, Mr. Daryl. Now let's check how well we can use this tense. ეხლა კი გადავიდეთ გრამატიკულ სავარჯიშოზე. მონიტორზე თქვენ ხედავთ წინადადებას. მოდით ერთად შევეცადოთ ზმნას სწორ ფორმაში ჩავსვათ. Now let's look. I, then we have a verb talk to a doctor about my fear of heights. So this action happened in the past, but we don't know exactly when. So the time is not specified. So I think that we have to use here present perfect. And as you said, we have to use have plus past participle, the third form of the verb. So I would say the sentence like this. I have talked to a doctor about my fear of heights. And I think that I'm right.
Excellent. Very well done.
Now let's move on to the next sentence.
We have Paul, blank, not admit to anyone that he's afraid of driving.
And again, the action happens. Paul admitted, but we don't know exactly when. So time is not specified. So again, we have to use here present perfect.
Exactly. And the answer would be, Paul has not admitted to anyone that he's afraid of driving.
Absolutely right.
Let's
I
move.
said you are very good at grammar.
Hopefully.
Okay. Well, and the next sentence is Tina. Then we have a verb, give that speech 3 times. So Tina gave that speech, but we don't know exactly when. It's her life experience from her birth up to now. She has given speech for 3 times. So I think again I have to use present perfect, and I would say the sentence like this: Tina has given that speech 3 times, and I'm right.
Well done. You two are an expert at grammar.
Yeah. Okay, turns out. Our next sentence is I, then we have the verb not meet anyone with a fear of flying. So again, this is a life experience. It covers the period maybe from birth up to now. So again, I think that we have to use present perfect in this case. And I would say the sentence like this: I have not met anyone with a fear of flying. Do you agree?
I agree with you, and let's check.
Let's check. Yeah, I was right.
Although I have met someone with a fear of flying, and that person's you.
Yeah, okay, you revealed it, right?
Reveal your secret.
Okay. And I think that we have come to the end of the lesson, and I would like to ask you to summarize the lesson if you're not against.
Sure, I'd love to. We looked at vocabulary around phobias. We read a text on phobias, and then we moved on to the grammar, where we discussed a great tense, a very useful tense, the present perfect tense.
Yes, absolutely right. And now I think it's time for our homework. And what are we going to have as a homework?
Well, we have this question for our audience. Write about a phobia that you or anyone around you has. And I think this should bring us some interesting answers.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to seeing the homework. Okay, and where can the homework be uploaded, Mr. Daryl?
The homework can be uploaded to the address you see on the screen, and you will be able to find the model answer as well at the same address.
გთხოვთ დავალება ეკრანზე მითითებულ მისამართზე ატვირთოთ. Now, I think that we have to say goodbye to the audience, but we are going to meet them again with some more interesting topics.
Yeah, some secrets were revealed this episode about you as well as me.
Yeah.
But let's move on.
Okay, so stay with us and keep on learning. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.